Today, we're jumping into a real mystery. How in the world do you piece together the history of a civilization from thousands of years ago, especially when they didn't really leave behind history books like we think of them today? Let's get into it.
So, yeah, this is the big problem, right? For a huge chunk of ancient Indian history, there are no neat, tidy historical accounts. You can't just pull a book off the shelf and read about who was in charge and what happened. So, where do you even start?
Will you start by completely changing how you think about it? The historian has to stop being a reader and start being a detective. The past isn't a story waiting to be read, it's a massive, ancient crime scene, and their job is to hunt down every single clue left behind and figure out how they all fit together. Okay, so every good investigation has to start somewhere. We're going to begin with the most tangible evidence you can get, the clues we can literally pull right out of the ground. These are the physical pieces of a world that's long gone.
And that, of course, is the science of archaeology. Now, this isn't about finding lost treasure or anything. It's about careful, systematic digging, peeling back the layers of the earth to build a picture of how people actually lived their day-to-day lives. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Archaeologists have two main ways of digging. A vertical dig is kind of like taking a long, skinny slice out of a layer cake. It shows you the order of things, which culture was on the bottom layer and who came after them. But a horizontal dig, that's like taking the entire top layer off the cake. It's way more expensive and rare, but it gives you a complete snapshot of a whole town at one specific moment in time. And from all that dirt, a whole world starts to reappear. We can map out the city grids of Harappan cities from way back in 2500 BC. We find the pottery they cooked with, see the foundations of their houses, and even analyze grains to know what they ate. Down in South India, we find these amazing things called megaliths, tombs surrounded by huge stones that tell us all about their burial rituals and what tools they thought they'd need in the afterlife. All right, our next set of clues is something you could actually hold in your hand. Coins. You should think of them as these tiny metal discs just packed with data.
The official term for this is numismatics, the study of coins. See, in ancient India, there were no banks or paper money. If you had savings, you had metal coins, and you'd often just bury them in a pot for safekeeping. When archaeologists find these hidden hoards, it's like a direct window into the economy of the time.
And this chart tells that story perfectly. Just look at the sheer volume of coins found from the post-Maurya and Gupta periods. That points to a booming economy, right? The Guptas were even making the most gold coins. But then, look at the post-Gupta period. That massive drop-off screams that there was a major decline in trade. The coins themselves tell a story of economic boom and bust. It's incredible. Now, our next clue is a little different. These are messages that were never ever meant to be lost. These are announcements, records, and even boasts that were carved into stuff that was built to last forever.
This is the world of epigraphy, the study of inscriptions. See, unlike a fragile old manuscript, an inscription on a stone pillar or a copper plate, that's a public statement. It's a society writing its own story, quite literally, in stone for everyone to see.
But, just because a message is in stone doesn't mean it's easy to read. For centuries, the pillars of the great Emperor Ashoka just stood there, completely silent, because nobody could read the script. A 14th century emperor even had one moved to Delhi, but his top scholars were totally stumped. It wasn't until 1837 that a British official named James Prinsep finally cracked the code of the Brahmi script. And in that one moment, a whole lost empire just snapped back into focus. And these inscriptions tell us so much. You've got Ashoka's royal orders, which are basically public service announcements for his entire empire. You have records of donations from everyday people to their temples. You get these big, boastful eulogies praising kings like Samudragupta. And there are thousands of records on copper plates that are essentially land deeds. Every single one is a vital piece of the puzzle. Okay, so now we turn to our final set of clues. This is the richest, but honestly, it's also the most challenging category, the huge collection of ancient literature. But first, a little reality check. Get this. The invasion of Alexander the Great, a massive world-changing event, is not mentioned in any contemporary Indian sources. Not once. The only reason we know it happened is because the Greeks wrote about it. This is a perfect example of why our detective can never, ever rely on just one type of clue.
So what's in this library of evidence? Well, it's huge. You have religious epics like the Mahabharata that show us social values. You've got these incredible law books like the Arthashastra, which is basically a how-to guide for running a country. There's creative stuff like plays by Kalidasa that give us these amazing little glimpses into daily life. And then, so critically, you have accounts from outsiders, like the Greek ambassador Megasthenes, or Chinese pilgrims like Fa Xian and Hun Song, who give us this priceless view from the outside looking in. But, and this is a really big but, here's the catch. The oldest manuscripts that have actually survived, written on things like birch bark and palm leaves, only date back to the 4th century AD. That means they were written down hundreds of years after the events they're talking about, passed down orally from generation to generation. It's like trying to solve a case where the main witness statements weren't written down for 2 centuries. So, after all this, after digging through pottery shards and analyzing gold coins, after decoding stone pillars and reading epic poems, what's the final verdict? This brings us to a really big question that scholars have debated for a long time. Did ancient Indians even have a historical sense like we do today? Did they care about recording the past with accuracy? And the answer is, well, it's complicated. Their approach was just different. Texts like the Puranas have these super long lists of kings, which shows a clear sense of dynasties and the passage of time. But they mix myth and fact all the time. And, weirdly enough, they often write about past events in the future tense, like their prophecies. It's not modern history, for sure, but it's definitely its own unique way of thinking about the past. And they were absolutely concerned with marking time. You see the creation of several different calendar eras, like the Vikrama, Saka, and Gupta eras. They use these dates in inscriptions all the time. This proves they had a precise system for saying exactly when and where something happened, which is a key part of any historical thinking. The best example we have of early historical writing that feels a bit more modern actually comes from 12th century Kashmir. A writer named Kahana wrote the Rajatarangini, or the Stream of Kings, and it's really considered the first work that intentionally tries to look at different sources, think critically about them, and write a chronological history, a lot like the detective work we've been talking about. And that kind of leaves us right here. History isn't just the past itself. It's the story that we can build, the story we can prove, using all the scattered clues that were left behind. And for the detectives of ancient India, that case is never really closed. The investigation is always ongoing.